we doing today?
Good.
Good. All right. Today we are going to do an activity with a poem that some of you may already know, and I know it's one of my loved poems in my home. But anyways, we're going to do an activity with a poem, but before we do that, I want to review a few things from yesterday. So, yesterday, we started with our learning target, which is I can determine how rhymes and rhythm impact the deeper meaning of a poem. And we learned a lot about rhymes and rhythm. Let's review. So, who can tell me what's rhythm? Especially when talking about poetry. Josh, what's rhythm?
Beat of a poem.
A beat of a poem. Good. I want someone, raise your hand, tell me, when we're talking about rhythm and poetry, what is the technical literary term that we use when referring to rhythm and poetry? Caitlin?
Meter.
Meter. Very good. So, poems, not all poems, but a lot of poems have a meter or a beat to them. Also, a lot of poems have rhyme in them. Now, you guys know what rhyming words are. We've been learning rhyming words since we were little bitty. But we learned some new things about rhyme yesterday. What are some new things that you remember learning about rhyme? Josh?
Partial and full.
Partial and complete rhyme. Yes. Someone tell me what's a complete rhyme, or give me an example of a complete rhyme. Aaron, what you got?
An example of a complete rhyme is like cloud or shroud or bat, pat, or mat.
Yes, cloud, shroud, bat, pat, mat. So what is a complete rhyme then?
A complete rhyme is two or more words that rhyme in total, so they have the exact same ending sound.
Yes, good as well. So a complete rhyme, they rhyme completely together. Then the other kind of rhyme you mentioned, partial rhyme, which in the literary world is also called slant rhyme. What is that? What's slant rhyme or partial rhyme, Davis?
It's where like the consonants sound like kind of rhymes, not like quite, but like.
Yes, they kind of rhyme. Davis, can you tell me why sometimes rap artists or poets choose partial rhyme over complete rhyme?
It would give you like a larger selection of like words to rhyme with.
Yes, it kind of opens up your ability to write more because your boundaries, there's less boundaries when it comes to your words. Good job. And then we also learned about internal and end rhyme. Who can tell me the difference between internal and end rhyme?
An internal rhyme is inside the lines of a poem, so it's a rhyme in a line of a poem that could rhyme with the end word or a different inner line, inner word. And an end rhyme is words that rhyme at the end of a line.
Very good. And very good. And then finally, rhyme scheme. What's rhyme scheme, Elias?
It's the patterns of rhymes at the end of the line.
Yeah.
Yes, the pattern of end rhyme, how it's pattern in the poem. Very good. So yesterday we worked on our first step in success criteria. You can define the different types of rhyme. You can define rhythm. Check. Today what we're going to do is jump into, can you identify it now? If I give you a poem, can you figure out the rhythm? Can you figure out the rhyme? And in our Nearpod station today, we're going to kind of dabble into this final success criteria. Can you tell me how that rhyme or the rhythm affect the meaning of the poem? That's the most challenging part of learning this, learning target. But we'll also be continuing to work on this next semester when we jump into a little bit of Shakespeare as well. All right, so before we start all this, I want you to talk at your tables really quickly and tell me, at this time of year, what are some of your family traditions? Whether it's holiday related, winter related, what are some of your traditions in your family? Talk at your tables.
So we have like 7
Yes, I hear
I love that. Chinese? Do you order out or you make it?
We order
out. I like that one. I like that.
They're never gonna.
Okay.
Chinese places.
All right, let's talk together as a class now. So tell me, what are some of your family traditions? Caitlin, what's one of yours?
On Christmas Eve, we eat Chinese food.
I love that. Chinese food on Christmas Eve. What's yours, Jasmine?
You go to both sides of the family and like have a big feast basically.
Like a huge feast. I like that. What about you,
I
Ricky?
have two.
What are yours?
Staying up all the way to 5 o'clock on Christmas Eve, partying,
Uh-huh.
and then sleeping.
Oh, sleeping in on Christmas Day? I love it.
I have two as well. One of them is we always go to Kenzie Family Farm and get the ornament from there in our tree. And then the other one is that we always eat stromboli on Christmas Eve.
Oh, I like that. I like that one. What about you, Alan?
So on Christmas morning, we eat a big breakfast so that we don't eat lunch that day. Because we have a big breakfast, and then we eat dinner with our entire family.
Nice. And last one, Charlie.
So my family does this thing where all of them wake up late on Christmas Day, and I don't get it because I wake up at like 6 a.m. and then I go downstairs and I let my dog out, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do now?
So you just have to wait on them until they get
Yeah.
up? Or
We
do
do
you
have
go
this-
wake them up?
We have this
my
thing
brothers.
though where like whoever's up first, we can open the stuff in our stockings, but then like we have to put it back and then be like excited later on. For
Oh, that's
but like
your
we're not allowed to open anything else. If we so much as like move it a centimeter, we get in trouble and we have to be the last one to open it.
See, our thing is if we're the first one awake, then we have to wait till the other person opens all of their presents to open ours. Which is my parents' thing of don't wake me up until 7.
That's a very tricky rule right there. In my family, one of my holiday traditions, and I don't know about you guys, and maybe that's because I'm a reading teacher, some of my holiday traditions revolve around reading things. Well, first of all, before I tell you what mine is, do you guys have holiday traditions that revolve around reading things, like reading text? What is yours?
I don't really think it's a tradition, but my mom normally reads spooky stories to us sometimes.
Oh, spooky stories? What about you, Caitlin?
This is gonna sound really sad, but my great grandmother recently passed. So every day of Christmas, she usually would text me like, "Merry Christmas, hope you spend it well with your family." So every Christmas, I read that in the morning.
Oh, that's really sweet. Izzy?
On Christmas Eve, we all read by the fire until it's time to go to bed.
Just your individual reading?
No,
Or do you
like,
read
the whole family.
together?
The whole family does, but like with our own books.
With your own books. Okay, I like that one. What about you, Alan?
So my siblings like make reindeer food, so we go out in the lawn and we sprinkle that all over grass, and then we go make cookies, and then normally we'll like read a book, or I'll read a book to like my younger siblings.
Like a winter, like a Christmassy book? I like it.
Christmas is the time I realized I've read all the books in my house, and my brother's and mom's books are boring, so I need to get more.
Jasmine, what do you guys read?
Well, I don't know, it's not a tradition yet, but I think I might gonna start like reading some books that I have to my sister.
I love it. So in my family, what I do, and this was something that my parents did for me, and now I'm passing down to my own 2 children, is we read the story "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" on Christmas Eve before bedtime. And so my mom, she always read the story with me, and now I read it to my 2 little girls on Christmas Eve. How many of you guys read that book around this time of year? "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." How many of you have ever even read it, like you've read it at least one time in your life? Okay. All right. So today what we're going to do is I want to look at this, it's a poem. I want to look over it. It's in a book form, but it is a poem. And you guys have it already attached in your notebook. But I want to look at it today and talk about it because part of this poem is that it's really a well-loved American poem and it's really cherished by a lot of families. But my reading teacher self, that's my mom's self, that I love this poem, it's so sweet, my family self. But my reading teacher side of me says, oh my gosh, there's figurative language, sound devices, rhythm, and rhyme. There's a plot line. There's all these cool things going on in this poem that we've been working on all year, learning poetry. So I wanted to take a really well-loved poem and kind of look at it, have fun with it, and maybe when you go home and read this poem with your family, you guys can point out the rhythm, the rhyme, the sound devices, and figurative language, and have fun with it. Okay, here we go. You ready? I'm going to read it to you. You follow along. I'll read out loud. A Visit from St. Nicholas. And that's actually the original title of this poem. It's actually not "'Twas the Night Before
What's the one
Christmas."
that has that title on it?
The original? Okay. This is by Clement C. Moore. "'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The children nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the roof there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutter and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of a new fallen snow gave luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and a tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacles mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed in all fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and a beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings. Then he turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night." All right. Do you like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Really quickly, I'm going to give you a quick little timeline of this poem. So this poem was actually written in 1822. Did you know that? Long time. We're coming up on 200 years in just a few years of the anniversary of this poem. And actually, the author, Clement Seymour, he was said to have wrote this when he was on a shopping trip with his family on Christmas Eve, and they were in their family sleigh. It's snowy, they didn't have cars, they were sitting in their sleigh. I'm gonna guess his wife was probably out shopping with the kids, and he was sitting in the sleigh, and he started writing this poem for his family. He was a professor, he was a writer, he was well known for his high academic achievements, so he was like really highbrow kind of guy, and he wrote this cute little poem that we all know today. In 1823, a year later, it was published anonymously, and it said that he didn't want his name attached to this poem because he thought that this would make him look bad, because he was well known for his like really high level writing and all this like fancy academic stuff he was publishing, that he didn't want his name on this. This was just something silly he threw together for his children. And so he refused to acknowledge that this was his poem. Then in 1837, it was republished again, but his name was on it. Someone had tipped off the publishers that he was the one who wrote it and put his name on it. And finally in 1844, after his kids were like insistent, because his kids loved this poem, it became their family tradition to read it every Christmas. They insisted that he took ownership of the poem. And so he published this poem in a group of, an anthology of his own work. And he took credit for writing it. So now, this is arguably one of the most famous American poems ever to be written. And I think that's so funny in the fact that it started in a sleigh on a family shopping trip when he had like no intention of anyone ever reading this. Does this remind you of another author we've read for poetry this year that she never intended for people to really love or read? Grace Marie, who is that? Emily Dickinson, yes, yes. So I think that's so funny how sometimes in literature that works, is the stuff that we don't intend for people to read tends to be some of the best stuff that becomes the most popular. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. First of all, how many stanzas were in this poem? Let's review really quickly before I let you off on your own. How many stanzas were in this poem?
13, 14.
14.
Hearing 13 and 14.
If you include the last sentence, 14.
Okay, the only thing that you don't include when counting stanzas is the title and author. So if we don't include that, but everything else, even if it's one line only, it counts as a stanza.
14.
So what's the final answer?
14.
14, good. Now, how many lines are in the stanzas? The majority of the stanzas. A few stanzas are different, but the majority of the stanzas, how many lines? 4, very good job. And I want to ask you quickly, who's the narrator or speaker of this poem? Can you describe them?
It's a father of one or two children and his wife, and he's seeing things.
Yes, it's a father who's having a hard time going to sleep that night, and he observes what happened. Santa visiting the neighborhood. Yes. What is the poem type? We've reviewed over poem types. We've talked about odes and elegies and limericks, haikus. What kind of poem is this one? Think about it. What kind of poem? There's actually 2 types this one could fall under. It is narrative. Charlie, tell me why it's narrative.
It's a narrative because it tells a story.
It tells a story. There's another poem type it can fall under. Think about how rhythmic it is. A lyric poem. Why is it lyric?
Because it has
Yes, it has a specific rhyme scheme. Very good job. Very, very good. And what do you guys think about the overall mood of the poem? How did it make you feel when you read it? Cheery? Jolly? I like that. Happy? Did you feel the excitement in the poem?
Yeah.
Yes, and it was kind of bouncy and fun. I love it. All right. So here's their stations. Quick rundown. Station 1 is right over here. This is figurative language. You guys are going to be analyzing the figurative language in the poem. The directions are on the station. Sound devices is station 2. You guys are going to be annotating the sound devices used in the poem. Rhyme is right over here. You guys will annotate the different rhymes and rhyme scheme used in the poem. Rhythm is station 4. You guys have a Nearpod lesson that you'll be working on to analyze and look over the rhythm that's used in the poem. Then station 5 is going to be a Gimkit review station. It's going to primarily go over the vocabulary used in the poem, but it's also going to cover a few review questions that kind of touch on all of these stations. And then the final station is station 6, my plotline station. You guys are going to be analyzing the plot of the poem and picking out the different parts. All right? So here are your groups. Okay? What I'm going to need you to do is get your book. You don't need a pencil because any writing utensils are provided. Get your book. I want you guys to push in your chairs, and I want you to go with your group to your group station.
Okay, so we found hyperbole, which was not a creature with strength, which is impossible because creatures are always moving. Okay, we also found a bowl full of jelly, which is a simile because it's just like. Did you find anything?
I found personification. Well, visions were sugar plum. Well,
Visions of.
sugar plums dance in their head.
Okay.
And I need help with metaphor.
We have metaphor. Okay, so does not use like your ass. Wait, no, that was you. Have you found anything? Because everything's like.
I couldn't find anything.
Okay. So there's more rapid than eagles, but I don't think you could put a like in that to make it a simile. More rapid like an eagle.
Maybe? I don't know.
We should star it. There he was chubby and plump and a right jolly old elf. I don't know if that's considered metaphor.
Well, if you put like in it, he was chubby and plump like a right jolly.
That makes sense. I think we should do that one. No, I checked.
So are you saying if you put a like in there and it makes a simile, then if you take it out, it's a metaphor?
Yeah, that's kind of what I use.
That's a really good strategy. So you're saying the metaphor is that he was an elf?
Yes.
You got it.
He's Santa's elf.
Good job.
What else would be? Wouldn't Flash also? Wouldn't Flash also be on up here?
I don't think so. No, that's like a thing. No. Does TH like work for onomatopoeia? Or not onomatopoeia, alliteration? Like, it'd be like there.
I think. And then in Twinkling, I heard the word. I think Twinkling would be more of you.
You got it. That's one. I think there's another twinkling in the poem.
There's Twinkled.
Twinkled? Is it twinkled?
Yeah, it's Twinkled. What about the it's repetition of A's? A, and A.
What do you guys think is the most commonly used sound device in the poem right now?
I think it would be alliteration.
Is that what you said, Jasmine?
Yes.
Alliteration? Yeah. Alliteration. And what else would be another one that's used a lot?
Repetition.
Repetition. Yeah. Good job, guys. All right, sound device station. Oh, no, you guys are rhyme station.
Yeah.
What have you noticed about the rhymes? You said AABB?
No, I think it's
House mouse.
Dab. So let's see. Clatter.
Clatter the D.
Yes. Flash. It keeps going down.
Keeps going. Do you notice a pattern?
The both each stanza has two end rhymes.
Two end rhymes that match. And are they broken up or are they together?
They're together.
They're together. So what this says is when you have two lines that rhyme together over and over, these are called couplets. So you have couplets in this poem. So it's what would be, if I say what's the rhyme scheme of the poem, what's your answer then? AABB. You don't have to keep going with C, C, D, D, E, E, F, F. It would just A, B, A, B, B. And we would know it's rhyming couplets for the poem.
Okay.
Good job, guys. Did you notice any internal rhyme?
Internal, no.
Not really. So what is this poem mostly comprised of then?
End rhymes.
End rhyme. Really good. Good job.
It's just
Night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
Good. How many beats are per line, guys?
4.
4 beats per line. Good job. Do you feel the rhythm?
Yeah. Yes.
Now I have $24. Hot something else is an example of what.
All right, guys, how's the gym kit going?
Good.
Good. Who's in the lead? Who? Camp. You're killing it up there. Good. What are the most difficult questions?
The vocabulary.
The vocabulary? Yep. 1822. They use some different words than we use now. Is it helpful to use your context clues though? Yeah?
Or just any. We'll make a boot camp. I might get ungrounded today. Yeah, I think grounded because I had ISS.
Oh, I had that one, but I got it wrong.
I know the resolution is like when we went to sleep because I'm last. It said Happy Christmas to all and all. This is like when he went back to sleep.
That's a setting.
Yeah, that's what the exposition is.
So when you introduce your characters and like your setting.
So what is the exposition?
The night before Christmas.
And who's the main character?
The dad.
Good. What did you guys say was the inciting incident? What sets off the plot line?
When he hears the clatter.
Yes, good job.
And what's the climax? Well, first, what's the resolution?
Children were sleeping.
I have achieved
Visions of sugar.
He went to the window.
When a bully breaks your phone, so you break his phone. I have achieved. You just got backdoored. Yeah, you just got idiot.
Sometimes I find it's easier if you pick out the climax. That way you know how to get there. Do you know?
Yeah. So do you think the climax is when he saw Santa Claus?
Good job. When he saw Santa? Like when he winked at him?
Yes.
Yes. Because are we supposed to see Santa?
No.
No, so that was a big moment because he actually saw him and Santa saw him too. So now I'll try to figure out all the events that lead up to that point.
I know one of the rising actions is like when he gets out of bed.
Gets out of bed versus the window.
I am getting